So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight we have the pleasure of having just a wonderful young woman on the show. Can't wait to chop it up with her. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are, like briefly, and then we can get into more about what you do. Go ahead.
I feel like they could see like my feet with no shoes.
No.
Hey y'all, I'm Janae Tate, and I am a journalist. I'm also a full-time account manager for iHeartMedia. So I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm from Miami.
Are you from Miami?
Yeah, born and raised.
Oh,
Carol
okay.
City all day.
Oh,
Miami
Carol
Gardens
City. Okay.
when I want to be classy.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. So you be going to church at Antioch.
No,
that's the spot, right?
You know what?
That's
Everybody goes
to
Antioch. Well, a lot of people go. I grew up in another church called Jesus People in Miami Gardens. So,
okay.
Yeah, not Antioch, but they
I get
sisters
you.
and brothers across the street.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Man, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you just got off work, so
yeah.
I know you're tired, so I appreciate you coming out. And thank y'all for tuning in tonight. We do this every single Wednesday, so please feel free to ask questions, pose comments. And yeah, let's get into it. Tonight we're talking about journalism as it relates to social issues such as racism, sexism, classism, any type of oppressive ism that you can think of, specifically under the era of Trump. And it's, I think, a hot topic, controversial topic.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I was just hoping that maybe you could tell the people a little bit about how you started in journalism, what attracted you to journalism. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so should I look at you or anything?
Oh, you can look at the camera. Oh. Yeah, look at the camera. Yeah.
I got my start in journalism. What was that? Like 2010, 2011?
I thought you were gonna say 20 years ago.
Baby, don't age me. Actually, I went to FIU.
Okay.
I was in their journalism school.
Turn up. Okay.
Yes, go Panthers. I studied journalism and mass communications, and I got like my real start when I did my internship at the Miami Herald and at CBS Miami.
What's that? CBS Miami?
CBS
like the store?
No, CBS Miami.
Oh,
the news.
CBS
News.
I heard CVS.
Oh no. Sorry, that's
not Walgreens' cousin. Okay.
No. I speak really fast, so let me know because it's my Miami accent.
I thought it was Spanish for a minute. I was like, okay, this is Bad Bunny. All right.
That may be mixed up in there because I'm born and raised in Miami, so we all speak really fast. So I'll slow it down for y'all. But CBS News Miami. And at first I wanted to work in television and I reluctantly took my internship at the Miami Herald. I was like, yeah, I'll do this shit, I guess, whatever. And I fell in love with writing and that process of storytelling, and kind of switched gears and went into print journalism. And for me, I would cover, the community news, the fluff pieces, and then as I kept doing it, I got into more political stories, not too much scandal, but mostly covering a city. So that's you're going to your city halls, going to council meetings, covering those local elections and understanding that. But I've written anything from an entertainment piece on Bob Marley's grandkids like Damien and Ziggy Marley to covering the political election in Miami Gardens or the Trayvon Martin case when that was going on. So things, it was a spectrum of things for me at that time as I was getting in, because it was 2011, 2012, and there was a lot of stuff going on in news. So that was a really interesting time to get started in the business.
So now you also do something else called High Low News.
Yeah, right? My baby.
So tell us, and y'all please go look up please follow her on Instagram. At her, you want to tell them what's your Instagram?
High Low News. That is my blog, HYLONEWS, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And my personal Instagram is Janae Tate, JANYTATE. We'll put that in the comments or somewhere for you to follow. But High Low News was birthed from my frustration in the newsroom because I worked in this market and I worked in the Tampa Bay area. I worked for a newspaper there called the Bradenton Herald right outside of Tampa. And what I noticed was a lot of stories covering different community aspects for the Black community weren't being covered. It wasn't considered sexy. It didn't bleed, so it didn't lead. And for me, I would hear from the community, yeah, we know these things happen. We know corruption happens. We know crime happens. But what about, our little league team that, are national champions? Or what about this new business that opened up? Or just different
positive things.
Yeah, more positive things.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a real thing. Like, yeah, we know you can't neglect these things, but can we have coverage for this as well?
Yeah.
So what I tried to do is bridge the gap between, I would say, entertainment, business, things that are, I guess I call them, I don't like to say fluff. They're more positive news, but I also will go into things that are happening in the community, maybe something corruption. If you look on the blog, there's a piece from a couple of years ago when Opalaka was indicted because it's a black community. So I call it, it's a blog for black millennials. It's the only blog that's dedicated to issues and concerns for us and by us. You'll see,
FUBU blog.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but you can't. That's copyright infringement. But yeah. So it's so you'll see a story on there about politics, but you'll also see a story on there about Kanye West. There is a current story I have on there right now that's kind of funny. It's about 11 phrases of terms for Miami that mean you could catch these hands. Yeah. So it's funny stuff on there.
Can you give us like 3, like 2 or 3?
Oh, 2 or 3. The ones that aren't.
And if y'all from Miami, what are some terms that y'all think that can mean
that means you could catch these hands? One of them.
Go ahead. What you got?
Because the 3 that I could think of that aren't like so explicit.
Oh, please feel free. We do everything on the show. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I could cuss.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
you already cussed once. You didn't realize it. It's alright. You said shit.
I'm so.
You said the shit word. Go ahead. Hey, there's a comfortable space. Go ahead.
One of them is free smoke. So that means this smoke is free. You could get it.
Okay. What else you got?
The first one was want to fight hoe.
Yeah.
Did you want to do this?
Yeah.
One of them is puss ass hoe.
Oh,
that means that is a very disrespectful term that you could say to a woman. That means we're gonna fight. And of course,
that would be a woman to woman.
Yeah, woman to woman. Okay, then the other one, the last one was fuck nigga. Like, don't say that to a person. That means
that we're gonna fight. Catch this fade.
Catch this fade was on there. So you catch this fade.
See, I read it. Yeah, y'all go read. Y'all go read, man. Y'all go read.
And the comments are funny because people were adding in like, "Oh, you forgot this one." I was
like, "Oh yeah." Yeah. That's dope. And I think that's such a great, also kind of relieving type of reading and artistry that, like, I think you said it perfectly. We're often so used to seeing like horrible things that people are just like situations, right? Here's a death here, here's a murder here, and this is also because your blog has a little bit of everything. We were talking about that earlier, how it has some political stuff, has some funny stuff. It has everything, which is, I think everything is important, right? Yeah,
it's about balance. And for me, it's just being a millennial myself that's, I'm kind of woke, who's a little bit conscious. Like, I'm just not only looking at the social issues and the political stuff. That's important. But I'm also into entertainment. I'm also into business. I'm also into social events. And then also a very important thing for me with the blog is the tone of voice of it, because my political articles is not like reading the Miami Herald or the New York Times. Like, I'm going to break it down in layman terms so you understand it, so you're informed when you're making your decisions at the polls or whatever issues that's coming up, because it's very important to relay the message so people understand. Like, I think that's something that is also missing with a lot of traditional journalism. Like, it's not digestible, so you're reading it and you don't really understand what issues that you need to take away from, or what bullet points or information that you need to take away with you so you can make an informed decision. Even
like the article, so we're talking about the art. So she wrote an article on Kanye.
Take this off.
Hey, go ahead. So you wrote an article on Kanye, and one thing that I appreciated about the article was that you respected his skill, right, as an artist. You refer to him as a genius in the piece, but then you also go on to critique him. And I think that's dope, because I think we can do both, right? We can respect how amazing he is, and you would talk about an album where he was just dropping awesome stuff regarding race, regarding, he said, Jorge Bush, and then you also critiqued him as like, bro, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, and that was so digestible. I think it was also a fun read.
Yeah.
Which I rarely get to say about anything I read.
Thank you. A PhD student. Because you read a lot. For me, it was important to like show that dichotomy of him. I think that it's something that we were talking about before we came on air is, where do we separate the art from, the issues? And I think too, when you think about journalism in the scheme of like this new social media world, everyone's an influencer, everyone has a message. Even though Kanye has his views and vision of things, he has to understand how problematic things can be. Absolutely. So I think that's where the role of journalism is so important. Like, you have to understand your sources, where that news is coming from. Like, you can't take everything to heart. And unfortunately, I wish that some celebrities took their platform more seriously, because people are coming to them for information. Because I think it's important for even platforms like this, or what I'm trying to do on my blog, like, to be another source of information. Like, Kanye may say this, or this person may say that, this celebrity said this, but we're actually doing the research. We're actually interviewing people who were leaders in this market or this industry, and they're going to give you some informed information for you to be able to take away with you, so you can make a good decision or know more about the subject. I just think that some people, if you have a platform, you're almost like a media outlet in yourself too, whether you want to believe it or not, to me. Because look, you have a following. You say some shit right now. If LeBron James said, everybody in Florida go vote for Andrew Gillum, he would have an impact in how a lot of people voted, because he has a platform. But people, they take it loosely.
Absolutely.
They don't take it as seriously. Some people do. I see some celebrities who respect that platform. They may not touch on certain issues because they know their influence. And some people just are reckless with it. And I think that, I wish that we could go back to trusting some more media outlets to give us information versus just getting everything just from, only influencers or celebrities.
So I think this is a great segue into tonight's topic. And as we're getting into it, I do wonder, as someone who is a journalist, who has been working in this field, this is your career. I also did want to ask you, like, what you do, because that's also really cool. But real quick, how do you define journalism? What does journalism mean to you?
Journalism.
And y'all feel free to ask questions, post comments.
I can't really see what y'all saying. So
I got it right here. Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah.
Journalism for me is reporting the facts. Being unbiased, giving a story or telling a story, bringing life to a story. It's following that code of ethics that SPJ has, Society of Professional Journalists. Being ethical in what you do.
Is that like a professional organization?
Yeah, it's a professional organization that a lot of journalists are a part of. I'm a part of the National Association for Black Journalists in our South Florida chapter as well. And there's just a list of ethics that you follow when you're being a journalist. And it's like not like some certification, like you don't do it, you're gonna lose your license, because there's no license in it. But there's like a list of rules that you follow. So for example, during political time, if you're gonna do an article on one person running for office, you have to do one on another. You have to interview both for fairness.
I feel you.
If you're going to do an article, say, on maybe there's a new policy coming up in the city, you may want to have one or two voices to speak about that. You want to have a balanced coverage.
Like a holistic. On what you're doing.
Holistic. Like, I'm not just only going to talk to a politician about what they're doing because they're going to give me all the talking points. I'm going to go talk to the residents to see how they actually feel about something and how it's going to affect them and what they think about it.
Even as fucked up as you think a politician might be, you still trying to give everybody.
I have to. You have to be fair in the coverage.
Shit, you better than me.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't not talk to a politician because I don't like them, especially if the issue directly affects them.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be working on a piece right now. I don't personally like this person. They're running for office, but to be fair, I can't leave them out of the story. And I have to come into that unbiased, leave all my bullshit at the door, whatever I don't like about them. And they don't even need to know that I don't like them. I need to ask them fair questions. I'm not saying all journalists follow that rule, because we have seen different things.
Fox News, right?
Yeah, Fox News. We see people who don't follow all the time, but for me personally, that's what I try to be as fair as I can.
So and you're kind of alluding to this earlier, like, what do you think? How do you also define fake news? Yeah.
Fake news is
because so there's this rhetoric, right?
You know what? I hated that term because it just gives everybody a way to label something that they don't like. It could be the truth, and you're just saying, "Oh, that's fake news." No, bitch, that's what it is. Like, it's the truth, but you don't like it, so now you're gonna say it's fake news. To me, fake news is something that's not the truth. And you can't label something fake news just because you don't like it, because it doesn't fit what you want to put out there. If I see that you were stealing money from your residents and I can prove that, but you just want to call it fake news, no, motherfucker, you stole that money. Like, they need to know that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And it's not fake news. And I think that's the really, really dangerous thing that we have with, our current president, is that these are facts. These are people who are researching this shit. We could see it. We have the receipts. And he will just say fake news, and his base is just eating it up. And then we have Fox News, who takes whatever he says and put it out there, and it's the Bible, it's law. And that's the issue that we're having right now. I think the role of a real journalist, I'm just hoping that the people, the masses out there, are able to decipher, and I hope they are. But for me, I'm hoping that y'all can really figure out, okay, this is a credible source, this isn't, and I'm going to make the best decision for me. I'm hoping that you guys are making a fair decision.
So we have, I think you pronounce it Candace. She's saying, good point. I'm teaching my students how to evaluate sources and identify valid sources of information. So, and I think that's awesome. So a specific question for you would be, as a journalist, how do you identify what a reliable source is?
There are a few things that I go through, depending on like what the subject matter is. For example, if I'm working on a health piece, are you a doctor in this field? If you're a politician, sometimes, just by default, if I'm covering that city, you would be a reliable source, but I'm also going to probably talk to somebody who may be, say, a business owner in that community. Sometimes you have to dig and do your research, because people will lie. I remember I was working on a story when I was in Bradenton, and I had a confidential source, and she was let me see.
Not searching for the word.
Let's see. Okay, I had a confidential source. She was telling on her boss, reporting to the newspaper that her boss was stealing money.
Oh.
So I had to do some digging to see what actually happened. And come to find out, he was actually being underpaid. He wasn't stealing any money, and I think she wanted his job. So with me, I can't just take everything at face value. I have to do more research. So that's how you figure out who a credible source is. You have to do a lot of research. You got to treat it very delicately, because you're dealing with people's lives. Like, most people are only in the newspaper when they're born and when they die. So anything in between, you got to be very delicate. And I take that very seriously. Like, just even spelling somebody's name or not leaving somebody out. Like, I try to do as much as I can to be as delicate with a piece and fair and balanced with the piece. But also, you can't sometimes be too delicate, because sometimes you're going to offend some people.
Yeah.
But when you're working with source, I say a lot of research. Seeing what the source is, what their motive is, because as I started digging, I found out that she wanted his job. So that's why she's coming to report to the newspaper confidentially, because she wants to get him out. So you have to always question that too. Like, why are you telling me this information? What do you have to gain from this?
But on the reader side, that shit is tough, right? To kind of be verifying stuff. And so, what do you think as a journalist in an age of social media where articles are just a click away? Like, I'll be honest, I'm guilty of that shit, where I see a headline, share, share. And sometimes I actually click on it and be like, oh man, this was printed 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you feel that has affected journalists and journalism? That's tough.
Unfortunately, it's had it's a catch-22. So I like the fact that you see a lot more independent news sites. You're able to be a player now. Before it was only the Miami Herald in town. Now you got dozens of outlets in this market alone, and let's not talk about nationally. But the only issue with that is the race to be first. So you're not always checking your sources and checking to see if the story's well written or all the typos are out, because it's a 24-hour news cycle, and also too, because a headline, it could be clickbait, it could be wrong, and people will see it and like, oh my gosh, it's sensational, I'm sharing it really quickly. So that's why I feel like there's a way to be quick but efficient and effective too. Yeah. So I think that it's a little bit of an issue, and I think with time, I don't think it's as bad as it was before when I first started, because I remember it was like everybody, we got to rush to get this story out. I think you see news outlets now taking their time a little bit more. They're still being fast with it, but you may have maybe 2 or 3 eyeballs looking at it before it goes out to print or to be published online.
It's crazy. There's this book called The Phantom Public by Walter Lippmann. This scholar in the mid 1920s who was writing about how it is impossible to know everything that is happening out there right now.
I agree.
And he was complaining about how there's just so much news just being delivered to people, and this was the 1920s.
Wow.
Right, almost 100 years ago. So now we're seeing this.
His mind would be fucked right now.
Yeah, totally, right. And I love that you're like, this is a 24-hour news. Like, you could literally go on at any point in time, and there's something there to read, whether it's factual or not, or recent or not. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. It's tough.
I think a lot of onus is going to be on the citizen themselves. Like, do you want to be informed? How informed do you want to? Because the information is there. It's going to be, it's an active role. Like, there's so much information out there. What do you want to consume? Do you really want to know about the issues on something? Do you really want to know who's running? Do you want to know how this is going to affect you? You have to be, that's a part of to me being civically engaged. You have to be informed as well. So I put that also on the consumer or the reader or the consumer of the news. Like, you have to understand what you're reading, where it's coming from. Is it a credible source? Do they have a track record of being a credible source for you? And then also as well, you gotta weed out the bullshit sites from the ones that are good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even as we're talking about this, I can't help but we have to talk about privilege. That it is even a privilege to be able to have time to decipher, is this factual, is this not, to read. Like, because when we talk about like social classes of people, like which people actually read newspapers or read the news, right? It's I think there's also like an economic component. It's usually like maybe poor people don't have time to read this shit.
I know, I'm tired. I just got off of work.
Yeah, you got babies, so like which people are all like, so we have to talk about privilege too, which I think is important. And which is another component which I love about your blog and what you're trying to do with bridging, because also literacy levels in the United States, most people cannot read like a full-on academic book. That's all right. Literacy levels are horrible in the United States. So one thing I do appreciate, blogs are extremely important, good ones, right? That it is accessible, it is digestible, and it's in representation matters. Also written by a black woman. It's like, oh, dope. So now I can see maybe a perspective similar to my own kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that's awesome. That's really dope.
I like your point, and I think it should be a stepping stone too. But here's the thing, as well. Like, my mom is, a working class black woman, and she always read the newspaper. I think it may be it may not. Sometimes it's economic, sometimes it's cultural. Like the Haitian community, they're really big into radio. Like, that's how they consume their information and their news. Black people, a very big newspaper that's been around for 100 years, the Miami Times. A lot of black people read that newspaper. In the Hispanic community, you have a lot of different newspapers in the community. Also really big with radio as well. And of course, a lot of people consume TV. So it's an economic thing, but it may be cultural as well.
I agree. That's a great point.
I think that there is a divide that may be happening, but I'm hoping that with the internet that it doesn't, create a huge gap. Because I remember studying in school that news may become something that becomes a privileged thing, like with paid news sites. Like, you see the New York Times and the Wall Street Journals, they have that.
Absolutely.
And they have these paywalls. And who can afford that? So I think that's the role. I think a really cool role of blogs, where you can take this information, you can still get it to people who may not be able to afford it. Because what you don't want to have is only privileged, educated people knowing what's truly happening. Because you're not informed, you're gonna get fucked. You're not on the table. I mean, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I think that's a cool role that independent blogs play, because you don't have to pay for them. But you do see that there is a bit of a privilege there too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Real quick, let me read some of these. Kai Speaks saying, what about fake news, such as sources thinking the First Lady wanted to divorce 45, is relative to everything else going on in politics? Does that matter, or do you consider those as reaches? So if I'm understanding the question correctly, like comparing what is deemed as news and what isn't. So the divorce. Like, I don't give a shit about the divorce, like as opposed to like something like more severe going on in a community or something.
So here's the catch-22, and I think me as a journalist, because my full-time job right now is selling media ads. I work for iHeartMedia. I'm not on the air for iHeartMedia. So I understand now the selling side of it. And with advertising and click-through rates, unfortunately, you're going to see bigger outlets putting out bullshit like that because they know that people are going to click to it. They're going to get a lot of eyeballs, and they're going to get the advertising dollars, and they're going to be able to satisfy their clients. And it's unfortunate. I don't even know if that's something that could be even taken out of the equation, because if you don't have those things, you don't get the traffic to your website, you don't get the advertising dollars, you don't be able to stay in business to pay your staff. So it's a whole lot of levels to that, and it's unfortunate. I think that it will be up to the consumer to not click on it. That's the only way you will see that shit disappear. Because if people are clicking on it and they're going to consume it, they're seeing more engagement and more clicks and more readers and more engagement for those bullshit stories, they're going to keep covering those bullshit stories. So then when you do want to get more information on something and that doesn't get as much engagement, hey, do we spend time with that or do we spend time with this?
It's crazy. So I usually
it's a business.
Oh, absolutely, and it's crazy because I usually don't talk about like books and stuff, but on the show maybe I should more. But there was this other guy, this French philosopher who came to the United States to conduct a study like in the mid 1800s, and he has a book called Democracy in America. Alexis de Tocqueville is the author, and it's very popular political science book. And he was talking about how, in his observations in the mid 1800s, Americans were mostly, and he considered Americans to be dumb. In comparison to the French. And he was saying that Americans tend to only read what he was calling like pop news at the time. So like, you know, like exactly what's going on right now. Yeah. So like this is not like a new thing that we're seeing. It's definitely like it's been happening for centuries, but also people are making even more money off of it now. I mean,
yeah.
And sometimes you have to do that, as you're saying, right? To even get traffic to your good page. To stay alive.
You know, how do I, keep my business afloat without posting these type of articles and doing this type of coverage? Honestly, like I said, that's the consumer. You guys are mimicking what should be done. So if you're consuming it. Somebody's consuming it. Maybe you don't like it personally, but it's a whole bunch of motherfuckers going.
It's selling.
Yeah. So, to me, that's what that is.
Candace is saying, excellent point, talking about you. She'll bring up the consumerism aspect with her students. I'm guessing Candace is a teacher.
Yeah, Candace, yes. Are you a journalism teacher, Candace?
Yeah, please let us know. Kai Speaks saying, makes perfect sense. I don't see it stopping, though, because this day and age, we are consumed in drama, news, and reality television. So this is an interesting point because we were also saying earlier how we need a balance, too. It can't just be everything that's going horrible with the world, right? This shit it's exhausting, like it's tiresome. So where does that balance for you as a journalist, as someone who has this blog with all different types of content? How do you begin to have a balance of like serious political issues and like some ratchet shit, like 9 ways to you fight somebody?
For me, it's you create that balance. And honestly, those political stories are more time consuming. That's more research. I don't want to just put out information because I could put up, like I literally wrote those, listicle stories within like an hour. Like they're easy to write. It's easy to get that information. But the serious stuff takes more time. I think it's being more dedicated to it and having more people more dedicated to doing that type of coverage as well, because I think that's something else you see in newsrooms that are shrinking. And also I see it just from my other colleagues, people who are managing editors at different media outlets. There aren't a lot of writers anymore. Everybody wants to either be, a host in front of the camera. A lot of people don't have like the command of the English language to actually write a story. A lot of people don't want to do that hard news, that research. They want to be entertainment and sports reporters. So you don't see a lot of, even just that workforce is almost shrinking as well. So I think that's another issue that we have to address as well. It's not as sexy as the other things, but for me it's always been cool. It's always been fun to do those things. I think also too, it may take more people like me and some of my colleagues to go into schools, go to journalism schools. Even in high school, I see they have a lot of those programs to go and talk to them about our field. This, to me, is fun, and explaining some of those different nuances about it, and the highs and lows about it. So people are more engaged. So we have that workforce. 'Cause I think that's another issue too. You may not have a lot of the workforce there to cover those serious issues as well.
I think it's a very important component. I hadn't even
because look for me. I mean, and I'm gonna just be real. I was a full-time journalist. The money wasn't good, and I mean, I was working in a dying breed. Newspapers were dying. Now there are more online news outlets, and you can make a living now doing that. So that's something that I may look into in the future. But at the time, when I made my transition a couple of years ago into media sales, being a newspaper reporter, it wasn't paying, and I gotta eat.
You gotta eat
at the end of the day. So,
and you live in Miami.
Yes, I live in Miami, and the reason why I can still keep some of those relationships that I had, they know that I could write, they know I could do the job, but they know, like, hey, I can't pay you what iHeart is paying you. So that's another issue too that we're having.
I mean, absolutely. Real quick, Candace is saying she's a science teacher, but the skills are applicable in many situations. Absolutely. She said also, I teach at a school that serves extremely marginalized students. And I think this is interesting when we talk about students that are disenfranchised, marginalized. Their ability to be able to critically assess the news is so important.
It is.
So have you ever done work with kids, young kids, talking to them about the news, or interviewing kids as part of your journalism career, out of curiosity?
No, I have interviewed a lot of kids. I've actually spoken at my old high school, Miami Northwestern, Miami Carroll City.
The West?
Yes.
Okay, I taught
they're
at the
going to
West
kill me. I graduated from Northwestern, but I am a chief at heart. If you read one of my articles, it's very apparent. It's something about the top 8 urban schools. And it's very apparent that I am a chief, and I'm a big fan. Okay. So I went to Carroll City 3 years and transferred to Northwestern my senior year. That's a whole nother story. I ran track.
Hey, okay.
Yeah. So I went to the West and then went to Carroll City. But I think that it's something important as well. I think to letting kids understand it more, maybe showing them a little bit more hands-on. I think now with the internet, it's more multimedia, so you could tell stories in different ways. I think just letting them know that is something that is accessible to them. And I know there's some people like Complete Athletes. Fahim Ali, he started that program, and he had a media component to it. So he wanted to show kids that they just didn't have to be in front of, on the football field. They wanted to transition into being a host or being a photographer, an editor, that there are other options outside of just sports and stuff. So I think it's going to take programs like that to get kids engaged. And I also think that, unfortunately, it's only so much I could do at a career day. I think it's up to the parents. The reason why I'm so engaged with news is because I saw my mom and my grandmother always reading the newspaper. So it was something that was in my household. It's something that I was brought up with. I hear them talking about social issues. So it's also to the household. I think, how are we raising our kids to understand information, what's true, what's not, what they need to be connected to, what they need to pay attention to. Like, my grandmother was a super voter. My mom's a super voter. We vote in every election.
Did you vote already?
I'm not going to vote on election day. Something about that. I just like to vote on election day. I'm like, it's something special to me to vote on election day. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not. Sometimes I early vote depending on what job I'm having, but right now I can vote on election day.
Yeah, I gotta go tomorrow.
Yeah.
Andrew Gillum. Yeah, man. Support. That definitely. Now he's not serious. I've been looking into his stuff. This man's talking about Rick Scott should call it a state of emergency because of the stand your ground law. I think that's a revolutionary thing to kind of say and do.
Yeah.
That's serious. So yeah. It's crazy people complain about people in office and then not vote. All right.
I know they don't. And see, that's something else too, because it's
go for it. Yeah,
it's something that you see in news. You see people trying to break that down, but at the end of the day, I think that and I kind of have a lot of faith in millennials. I think we'll see a lot, especially older skewing millennials. I'm talking about 25 to 35, because millennials is defined as an 18 to 35 year old. So I feel like 25
really?
to 30.
18-year-olds are included in millennials?
Yeah, I think more so if you look at the age range, I think it's 1980 to 97.
No, 18-year-olds were born in 2000.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was born in 88.
Woo. I was born in 87.
Not 87. You class of 07?
I'm class of 06.
06?
Yes.
Oh, me too. Class of 06.
Oh yeah, but see, they had that thing with the birthdays here in Miami-Dade.
You're a little older. So
yeah, I'm a little older.
Right. Yeah,
that's okay. She's seasoned.
Oh, seasoned. Not the adobo. Not the. So here's a question, because we're also talking about how journalism relates to social issues. Has there ever been a story that maybe you didn't want to write because maybe you didn't agree with? So I don't know. I was talking to someone and they're like, I don't know if I could do this job because I just don't agree with anyone who is part of the LGBTQ community. And I was like, whoa. So this is, and they were saying religion or something. So they were using the religion to be like for their job to say they can't work with this population. So has there ever been like a time where maybe you felt conflicted on, man, how do I report the news? Maybe not even disagreeing about, on something that I just don't know enough about, maybe not much about. I don't know if that question kind of makes sense.
It does. Fortunately, I don't really have this this view of the world and view of people as like, oh, these people in this box and this and that. Like, if you sent me out to cover a KKK rally, I'm going to go and I'm going to be as fair and as unbiased as I can to find the coverage. When I was a beat reporter.
What does that mean? A beat reporter? What does that mean?
A beat reporter is like you have a specific subject or maybe a specific area that you cover. So, for example, at the Miami Herald, if somebody covers the city of Miami, they're a beat reporter for the city of Miami. Or if they have an LGBTQ reporter, that's his beat. So you pretty much cover everything pertaining to that subject.
That beat area. Like in a musical way, like a beat, like.
I haven't really looked into why they call it a beat, but I just know that it means that you cover a specific theme, a specific topic.
I didn't know. Recently I've been thinking about the term hitting. So like when dudes hit on a woman, I'm like, I wonder where that term came from. Is this like some domestic violence? I'm like, so I was like, I didn't know beat meant you're beating.
Maybe it
like
could be
someone,
with beating the streets. Maybe it could be like, I don't know, like walking the streets, like going out in the streets to do coverage. I knew the term.
I didn't know.
Please don't judge me.
Oh, you good? Are you good? We got Google.
Figure out why that's called that. But that's your beat.
Okay, gotcha. So you said you were never really kind of conflicted with that.
I never was conflicted. Now, I probably wouldn't do certain things. I probably wouldn't take on certain assignments. If I do go back into journalism, it would be for specific news outlets and doing specific type of stories, so I don't have to be in those positions. But I think because I just believe in this field and this industry, as if I was a full-time reporter and I had to go cover a certain subject that I may not really agree with or I may not like, I still got to go out and do it because it's my job. And I got to be able to tell a fair and balanced story. I will say this, covering murder stories were always difficult. They weren't like something, I don't know anybody who wants to cover that, but those were always something I was like, oh gosh, because you have a family who just lost someone, usually somebody young, and it's the stories that I've covered were like senseless, violence. So you're trying to figure out what happened and what's going on in the community. You're trying not to get fucked up in the process for being too nosy. So those are really delicate stories to work. And those weren't too fun. I probably wouldn't want to do those stories again. But like I said, if I was a full-time journalist, I would do it. And I just I haven't been to the point where I was conflicted to where I'm like, okay, I can't do this job.
Man, Natasha's saying that they call cops the same thing, beat cops.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of new people getting on, so this is your first time. We're talking about the role of journalism
hey, y'all.
As it pertains to social issues, Trump. Feel free to post comments, ask questions. Clearly, Janae is extremely knowledgeable.
Thank you, because I want my colleagues out there probably like, why is she on there talking about journalism?
What you mean? Yeah, you definitely.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what you do right now, because it also kind of ties into journalism, and I'm sure there are decisions you've had to make as like, man, where do I stand on certain things? So you see how I did that? See, we ask good questions on Wednesdays. So what do you do right now?
Currently, I am an account executive for iHeartMedia. So what that means fancy way to say that I manage advertising buys or media buys for small businesses, organizations, anybody. If you want to do business with iHeartMedia, if you want to reach their audience, you would come and work with our account executive. We would create marketing campaigns. We have radio, we have events, we have digital. So those are the different assets that you could use to get your message out there. So we have an audience and we leverage it for our clients.
So what is iHeartMedia?
iHeartMedia is formerly Clear Channel. Most people know them. They're a media company.
Clear Channel?
Yeah, they used to be Clear Channel. But most people know iHeartRadio, the app. And iHeartMedia is the company that owns that asset. So we own about 800 stations across the nation. Yeah, they're the biggest in the game.
Really?
Yeah, and they have the iHeartRadio app. They have.
Man, you fancy. Well, I appreciate you gracing us with your presence tonight. Okay.
Oh, stop it.
Okay.
And they have the iHeartRadio Music Fest, the iHeart Latino, iHeartRadio Music Awards, the iHeart Country. Yeah, so
you
they're
lost me in that last one. Yeah.
They're just they're a major media company, and their base of their assets are radio stations.
So going from the field of journalism to this, was that a difficult kind of switch, or because still like I'm sure they're overlaps.
Related.
Yeah.
And for me, when I first got out of journalism full time, I started working in sales. So I had some background on that. It was retail sales, but I had an understanding of sales. For me, it's like a marriage of the two, because you have to understand, you have to be persistent. You have to be able to work relationships. There is like an understanding of media. So me working in newspaper and briefly in TV, I understood somewhat like the industry.
Yeah.
There is some writing, like I write commercials. I consult with people. We do client needs analysis. So that's pretty much me interviewing a client to see what their needs are. So some of the skills that I had as a journalist, they transferred over. Being working in this market for the last 6 years in media and as a writer, I had a lot of contacts, and you meet a lot of business people, you meet a lot of politicians. So that was something that was, a plus for the manager who hired me, because he's like, okay, she knows the market, she knows people, should be able to get into certain meetings because of that.
So have there been times, like, I don't know if you could say this, but like working in this new field where it's like, man, like how do I make some ethical decisions, knowing myself as a journalist, right, and the multiple identities that you also kind of have, like how do I navigate this?
Honestly, for me, and this is why, because like I said, I'm such like I believe in journalism and what it is. I kind of don't really consider myself like a full journalist, like as somebody who may work for the Times or the Herald, because there are certain decisions I have to make in certain stories I can't touch because there's somebody doing business with me. I can't be critical of somebody who's giving me, a $50,000 check, and this is what pays my bills right now for a passion project. So, something that I'm passionate about. So, unfortunately, I do have to draw that line with clients that I currently do business with iHeart. Like, I can't go on my blog and go in on somebody who just gave me a $20,000 check. Yeah, I can't do it. Like, that's just not smart. Like, once I leave or, that's something different. But right now, there is a separation that I have to have.
That's tough, man.
It is tough, and then sometimes it kills me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to write about this.
That's
or
tough.
I really want to, pitch this story to my editor to see if I can get this done, but I can't touch it because I'm not trying to lose my job yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I don't want to lose my job. Freudian stuff. But I don't want to lose my job, so I don't want to, put myself in a position where they welcome me out the door. If when I'm ready to transition, if I ever transition, I want it to be on my terms.
Now, have there ever been stories where it's like, because we talk a lot about, just like within like POC circles, like about code switching. And how did you navigate that when you were full-time journalist? Because I'm sure like some interviews you can't go in there speaking all like proper quote unquote, I don't believe in those terms, but we'll call that for now. And then you sit here and have to tell someone's story maybe differently. Like I don't know, how did you navigate it? Because to me that's tough to do.
Really?
I think so. Sometimes I don't want to do that, which is one of the relieving things about reading your work. And I was like, oh, this is cool, because I just wrote something that I'm trying to publish in an academic journal about linguistic power structures and how we otherize people through language. James Baldwin wrote about how language is political, and it really is. So for me, it may not be difficult to do in the moment, but it's difficult for me to need to do. So I wonder, how do you navigate that? Because now, iHeartRadio, I feel like you might be able to be more of like yourself at certain points.
At work,
maybe I'm
wrong. At work, I am. But I think that most Black people, and I feel like in the Hispanic community too, but a lot of Black people, we grew up speaking 2 languages. Like the way I speak, even how I'm speaking now, like I don't speak like this at home with my mom and my family. Like it's very relaxed. You probably hear a strong Carol City, Miami Gardens, whatever, Miami accent. We speak very fast. Like it's not proper English all the time because we're comfortable and that's how we speak. Yeah. But when I'm in an interview, job interview, interviewing a client, doing a newspaper interview, there's a certain professionalism that I have to bring to the role. But here's the thing too. For example, if I'm in the hood, I'm not coming in there all, stiff and like I'm going to throw in some slang words. Because I want you to be comfortable. I need you to tell your story. I need you to understand that I understand you. And I think that's sometimes a disconnect when you see people covering communities that they don't understand, or they're not from, or they're not sensitive to. You're coming in and not understanding the culture. So I'm not going to go speak to somebody in the projects and try to throw out all these big words, because what am I doing? I need you to communicate with me. I need you to understand me, so you could give me the right the information that I want. So I code switch all the time. I go in and out of it. It's seamless almost. Like I think my white coworkers and my Spanish coworkers pick up on it more than I do. Like they'll see, like if my boss come around, or the president of our market, like, or something, like hey, how you doing? Then as soon as they walk away, and then as soon as they walk away, I'm like, yo, girl, what's up? Can you pass me that stapler? Like it's like they see me switch in and out of it so much that it's like, to me, I've been doing it all my life. And I don't even really notice it anymore.
So let me ask you a difficult question. Let me be the interviewer, right? Real quick.
Okay.
Ask you a difficult question. So in this thing that I'm trying to write, I end up saying how, while I understand that code switching is a survival technique, it's something that we feel that we have to do, something we need to do, right, to appease a dominant culture. Do you think, and this is what I'm arguing in my paper, that we actually end up perpetuating the problem, or the idea that code switch needs to exist? Because if we continue to code switch, and I code switch all the time, right, then this dominant culture will never begin to hear our other languages, right? We'll only think that our languages exist within a certain context. So do you think that sometimes we end up perpetuating the very thing that we're kind of confronting and battling with?
To a certain degree, and you have to do it almost for survival.
And y'all feel free to
comment. Like for me, because sometimes I think about it, and sometimes I go home and I'm like, man, I feel fake as fuck. Like, and you have to eat that, and you're like, man, I didn't really want to say that way. I wish I could have said puss ass. Oh no, I'm just but like you really want to, you really want to say it in the truest form to yourself, on how you would communicate naturally. But for example, I think that comes with power. I think that comes with more people of color in power positions, being able to make it okay for somebody to come in and maybe not speak proper English all the time, and not have to be so politically correct. Not gonna say political, because you don't want to offend people, but get what I'm saying, like being proper all the time, because that because this person may have said slang, that doesn't mean they're not capable of doing their job. And I think the person who is the perfect person who does this, my coworker Papa Keith, he's on the air, he's our afternoon host. He is himself. He is so Black, so Caribbean, so himself all the time. I've done countless meetings with him. He doesn't give a fuck. But I think it's because the position he's in, he's like our top guy for our radio station. So he's been in the game 20 plus years. Like, he is solidified. He's a businessman. Like, and I feel like that comes with power. I think he's probably always been that way. And you can see it. But for me personally right now, for survival, I can't do that. But I feel like as I get in a power position, that will probably fade away. And I do see that with more, I guess, people of color. You see them as they get in higher positions, they are more of themselves. They're more unapologetically black. And they're allowing more people, younger people who they bring in, to be that way. So I think that comes with power positions. And when I see him do it, I'm always like, yo, I respect this man so much, because he's always himself. He does not cut it off at all. Like, that's just him. But he's earned the right to do that.
It's a tough. That's tough.
Trust me, I sometimes I'm at home and I don't like it, and it is a tough thing, and I do feel like I'm, conforming to the system, and I had to, eat that and be, vanilla and corny and just not authentic to who I really am. Vanilla and corny. I had to do that because I want to, I gotta pay my bills. I like living in my apartment by myself.
You keep on trying to pay these bills.
I gotta pay these bills.
Man, talk about paying these bills.
If somebody want to help me pay these bills, I could be myself.
Not the love connection on Woke Wednesdays.
Why do I gotta be love connection? That could be just Cash App.
Oh, okay.
Give me a donation.
Oh, not the donation.
The doors of the church are open.
Oh, you a church. Oh, you saving people. Okay. Oh, okay. So look, we have about 5 minutes left. It's almost been an hour. Can you believe it? Yeah, we've been chatting it up. We've been talking it up.
This is fun.
Yes, I told you. Have a good time. Yeah. Thank you, because I had to cancel on her the first time because I didn't have no Wi-Fi. So if y'all want to make a donation, y'all feel free to make a donation too.
Wi-Fi.
We're good now. But so any like parting words? Because one thing you kept on saying tonight is that you really believe in this field of journalism.
Yeah.
And we have someone laughing. Vanilla and corny, and did I get that right? They're laughing. But so maybe what are some like parting words to people maybe who don't know much about journalism, or maybe who have like just they don't like journalism, they don't believe it, they think it's fake news. What would you kind of say some parting words to the people?
What I would say is to do your research, check the sources, see if someone is a credible source, follow them, support them so they could keep doing what they do. Have balance to your life. I'm not saying read the New York Times all goddamn day. No, you don't have to do that. But look at it sometimes. Look at sources that have been around for hundreds of years. And also look at some of the new people. A lot of them have come from those big organizations, and now they're starting their own things. But I think having a balance and wanting to be civically engaged and understanding what's going on in the world around you, I think that's on the consumer themselves. And I think that I really wish that people would take more responsibility in the information that they consume. And I think that starting with credible news sources is a great way for you to understand what's going on socially, politically, economically in your area and in your country and in the world.
Yeah, man, I think that's beautifully said. Real quick, Miss AKA85 is saying, great show. Can you please say or post your social media pages again for the people?
Okay, y'all like me? I like y'all too.
Gotta have you back.
Yeah. My personal Instagram is Janae Tate, JANEYTATE. I think
Hurston.
Mr. Sanchez is going to put that in the
Look at
that. The comments for y'all. And my blog is Hylo News, HYLONEWS, and that's short for hyperlocal.
I was gonna ask you, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's just a term that I learned in college, and I always thought it was super dope. And it just means like it's very concentrated on a specific area.
Hey, and you got it, man. Man, thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we
hug? Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be right here when I press end. I'm gonna be right here. But thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. I'll be posting this to Instagram story and to YouTube. So again, thank you so much for stopping by. Definitely got to come back.
Thank you. I would love to come back, and I got to bring some friends with me. I know
please bring some folks. Yeah, we'll have a good conversation. And y'all have a good night. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace.